In the last hour, President Trump has arrived in Saudi Arabia for the first major diplomatic trip of his second term. Air Force One landed at King Khalid Airport in Riyadh, where the president was met on the tarmac by the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. A purple carpet was laid out for Mr. Trump's arrival. The president's hoping to secure significant new investment in the US during the four-day trip to Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. President Trump and the Crown Prince sat down for an initial meeting inside the airport next to portraits of the Saudi royal family. America's top diplomat, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, is among the senior US officials travelling with the president. A lavish state dinner will take place in Riyadh later. Well, let's go live to Riyadh and join our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette. Lise.
Yes, and here it is. It's all started with pomp and ceremony, a very royal welcome, a very warm welcome in the heat of the Saudi kingdom for President Trump. He has a very strong personal relationship with the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. It was like that in his first term in office, where he also had given Riyadh the honor of his first stop on his first official tour. But this time round, this is a very different region and in some ways a very different American president. Let's now bring in Sanam Vakil, who's the director of the Middle East and North Africa program at the international think tank Chatham House. Welcome, Sanam Vakil.
Morning, Lise.
Let's focus really on what the region is like now. You'll remember in 2017, President Trump hosted a major summit of Arab and Islamic leaders talking about standing up to the Islamic Republic of Iran. But it's a different region now, isn't it, with different priorities?
It certainly is. 8 years ago, there were high tensions between Gulf states and Iran. And today, those relations have been broadly restored with Iran. There's dialogue, there's exchanges taking at all levels, and most importantly, Gulf states today are backing the direct talks between Iran and the United States over Iran's nuclear program. So this is a real opportunity to build on this de-escalation and encourage a better and more harmonious landscape in the region. And Gulf states are looking at this moment to put themselves forward as very important American partners at a time of global shifts taking place.
There was some speculation that President Trump could announce that they're renaming the Persian Gulf as the Arabian Gulf in a move to further please Gulf leaders. Any sense that would happen, and what would be the impact?
Well, I think sometimes President Trump throws ideas out there and sometimes he takes them back, saying he's reflecting on them. And this is exactly where we are on this issue, mainly because it could have been a trial balloon that he was test running to please Gulf leaders, as you say. But at the same time, he is oftentimes aware that moves such as this could ruffle the feathers of his negotiating partners in Tehran. This is a sensitive issue for Iranians. And while much of the world, including the United States, is already using the Arabian Gulf officially, symbolically, a move like this would be quite negative for Iranian leaders, but particularly Iranian people that are very nationalistic and animated on this sensitive issue.
Sanam, it's very clear that signing deals to bring investment to America is one of the main priorities for President Trump on this four-day tour. But people will also be looking to see what he says about a possible ceasefire in Gaza, what Gulf leaders will tell him. What are you expecting?
Well, this trip, as you said, comes at a very sensitive time in the region. The war in Gaza very much continues. There's a humanitarian crisis of epic proportion taking place in Gaza. And so Arab leaders will be pressing on the president to bring this war to an end, to guarantee that aid is provided to people who are starving in Gaza. And then beyond that, there will be a GCC summit where it is reported that the new Syrian leader, Ahmed al-Shara, will make a showing. And that will be also important as he lobbies for U.S. sanctions relief to help Syrians under the weight of sanctions in this moment of incredible transition. So the signaling and the statements on Gaza, on Syria, on broader regional stability will be very important signals for these conflicts and for these countries, but above all, to showcase the trust and weight, perhaps, that President Trump is going to put on Gulf states. He's looking for burden sharing from American partners and allies around the world, and I think he's very much outsourcing a lot of these portfolios to the Gulf states to manage in a way because the United States doesn't have the bandwidth and doesn't have the ability to manage these crises anymore.
And briefly, Salam, how much significance should be placed on the fact that Israel is not part of his itinerary for this first visit? Of course, the relationship between the United States and Israel is rock solid. But can we see this as a subtle shift by President Trump?
Well, I think it's quite obvious right now with the optical tensions between Netanyahu and Trump that there are differences. And these differences have lingered from the past administration. So this is a signal, this is a message perhaps, but because Trump is a deal-making president and very much focused on economic security as an anchor to America's regional partnerships, he's going to the Gulf first in order to prioritize this new approach to geopolitics and geoeconomics. So this is the signaling that is also very important here.
Salam Vakil, I know you'll be watching this visit closely. Thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News as we begin our special coverage of President Trump's first stop on his first official tour. Talks are now underway between the U.S. President and Saudi Arabia's de facto ruler, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is also here in Riyadh. So is the Defense Secretary, Peter Hegseth, as well as some top U.S. business and tech leaders. We'll continue our coverage, but we'll now hand you back to the studio in London.
Lise, thanks very much. Lise Doucette. Let's talk to Kashaya Junaidi from BBC Persian, also joining us from Riyadh. Hello, Kashaya. What do you expect to be the main points on Donald Trump's agenda there in Saudi Arabia?
Well, as Lisa and your guest already mentioned, one of the most important parts of this trip is about business, about how much money President Trump will be able to attract and bring with himself to the United States. We are talking about $1 trillion. And this is an amount of money that will be very important achievement for President Trump to show that he is pursuing his policy of American First, trying to improve the economic situation inside the country and bring businesses and investments inside the U.S. At the same time, we shouldn't look at this investment by the Saudis, by the Qataris or the Emiratis as like a charity money trying to donate to President Trump in order to bring to win favors with him. It's also a strategic investment by these countries. They've been trying to diversify their their finances from oil money into different sectors in the high-tech industry. They're investing in AI in the U.S. They're investing in production of high-tech electronics, and this means that they will have high yields on the money they're investing, but also they will have access to technology, which is very important for them. At the same time that President Trump is traveling to this region, we are witnessing important geopolitical tensions in this area, the war in Gaza, the nuclear talks with Iran, the help that the U.S. is receiving from the Saudis in its efforts to bring peace in the Ukraine war. And these countries here are using this new opportunity to improve their clout, to improve their image on the global stage, add to their clout, and be an important global player in the future. And this is what is important for the Saudis, it's important for the Qataris. Let's not forget, a few years ago, Mohammed bin Salman was considered as a pariah, but now he greets President Trump at the airport, on the tarmac, and the relations between the leader of the US and the de facto leader of Saudi is very important, it's very warm. And on the other side, President Trump, in his first term, had labeled Qatar as a state sponsor of terror when Qatar had its own diplomatic troubles with the Saudis and other Arab states of the Persian Gulf area. But now Qatar is not only hosting the US president on his first formal trip of his second term as a president, but also they are giving the US president of a very important gift, a $400 million airplane, which is going to which has been termed as a flying palace. So these relations with these Arab states here in this area are very important for the US and at the same time are very important for these countries.
And Khashayar, let's talk about where President Trump isn't going on this visit. He is not going to visit Israel. What do you think that signals in terms of US relations with the Netanyahu government, particularly in the light of that hostage release yesterday, the Israeli-American hostage Idan Alexander, which was negotiated without Israel's participation?
Well, first of all, it's no doubt Prime Minister Netanyahu is not happy that President Trump has traveled to the Middle East and he's not visiting Israel. It could have been a great political gain for him hosting President Trump in Israel. But let's not forget, first of all, President Trump recently hosted Prime Minister Netanyahu at the Oval Office, and the strategic importance of relations between Washington and the State of Israel are still as important as they've always been for both countries. Of course, there are some tensions. There have been reports that President Trump was not happy with the situation in Gaza, with the war in Gaza, with the Netanyahu's new push for military action in Gaza, and also that humanitarian aid has not reached the civilians in Gaza in the past 70 days. And President Trump is pushing for his own mechanism of sending humanitarian aid inside Gaza. Of course, some Arab states here in the Middle East are not happy with that also, like the Emiratis said they won't contribute to this mechanism. But there is some tension that exists there. And of course, here in Riyadh, the Saudis are not happy with this new military push inside Gaza and with Netanyahu's insistence that he won't agree to a permanent cease of tensions in Gaza and that he wouldn't accept the establishment of a Palestinian state. So what we are witnessing here is not only President Trump not traveling to the state of Israel, but on the other side, one of the key goals of President Trump of having Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords and normalizing relations with Israel is something that we are not expecting to be talked about that much during this visit. And one other thing is that the Saudis are expecting the Americans to help them to establish a nuclear program of their own inside this country. And during Biden's time, a nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia was conditioned upon normalizing of relations between Riyadh and the Israeli state. But at the current moment, there are reports that the Trump administration has dropped that condition.
Khashayar, thank you very much. Khashayar Junaidi from BBC Persian there in Riyadh. Well, how is this being received at home? Let's talk to CBS News correspondent Naomi Rookham, who's following the story from New York. Hello, Naomi. What is Mr. Trump looking to get out of this?
Well, Karen, good to be with you. The president has an ambitious agenda, to say the least, during this visit. His priorities include dismantling Iran's nuclear program, ending the war in Gaza, and keeping oil prices down. It all begins this morning in Saudi Arabia, a nation the White House has considered a key diplomatic importance to them. The visit, though, is also expected to focus on business. President Trump spoke at an investment conference in Miami in February that was sponsored by Saudi government entities, as the Trump Organization has sought to expand its real estate empire in Saudi Arabia, and the president looks to strengthen ties with the country. Trump has also attracted some high-profile business leaders for a U.S.-Saudi investment summit today. The speakers will include leaders from Citigroup, BlackRock, Uber, and Blackstone. There are diplomatic goals, too. 8 years ago, the first Trump administration brokered a breakthrough during normalized relations between Israel and a number of Arab states, known, of course, as the Abraham Accords. This time, the administration has made a goal of expanding the agreement and strengthening ties with Middle Eastern nations. Karen?
And Naomi, how is this visit being viewed there back home?
Well, there is at least some optimism, especially when it comes to the war in Gaza. President Trump is not planning to visit Israel during this trip, but he does make it clear that he considers Israel and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to be close allies. Instead, though, the hope is that he will work with these other Arab nations to break them with Hamas, condemn them, and perhaps force Israel then to back off in Gaza, eventually potentially leading to peace. Still, the president has insisted that the business is the goal of this trip. He sees an increase in oil production as a crucial step in lowering costs and inflation for average Americans. He also believes lower oil prices could help put an end to Russia's war in Ukraine. Karen?
Naomi, thank you very much. Naomi Rakim from CBS News in New York.